with our special guest today. How is everybody out there in Facebook world? Make sure to tune in, put your questions and comments in the chat. We're happy to answer them live on air while we're doing this. If you're watching us on YouTube, same thing goes for you. You can put those questions in there and we'll answer them as we're able to. While I'm doing this talking and chattering, I just want to make sure that everybody knows what's going on here. It starts on Monday, this Get There Challenge. It's a statewide challenge, so no matter where you are in Oregon, you can participate. Log your trips that you take in your car. No, that's not what it is. Do not log your trips that you take in your car. You can log them. You won't earn any points for them. There's lots of other things you can do. Ride the bus, walk, bike, ride a horse. Don't take a trip. Stay at home and remote work. All of those things count as trips that you can earn prizes for. If you drive in your car by yourself, you can log that trip, but you won't earn any prizes. So, do the challenge. Challenge yourself, challenge your employees, challenge your boss. Get out there and participate and earn some prizes. Alex, welcome. How are you this morning?
Thanks, Kathy. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Good. Thanks for joining me. So I didn't have to spend this half an hour here babbling on to myself. It'll be much more interesting for everybody if I'm able to ask somebody else some questions and we can hear from somebody else. So Alex, thanks for being here and tell us a little about yourself. Who are you?
Who am I? So my name's Alex Murphy. I am the city planner for the city of Astoria. I've been here now for about 6 weeks. I moved from out of state. My background has been wholly in local government work. I started as a planner in Coos County, Oregon, and then moved back to Utah, where my family is originally from, and decided I didn't really want to stay in the desert and wanted to live on the coast again. So
yeah, not much ocean in Salt Lake.
No, there is the Great Salt Lake, but sure, it's not really worth swimming in or even.
Yeah, and there's an awful lot of bugs over there by that Great Salt Lake.
Yeah. Don't want to do that. So we decided to make the big jump and came out here earlier this summer. So I've been a resident of Astoria now for about almost 2 months.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the area. It's fantastic to have you. So you're a city planner. What does that mean? What kinds of things do you do?
So city planners wear a lot of hats. So most people interact with us as the sort of development review kind of person where, if you want to build a house or remodel a house, add on to it, build some kind of commercial development or anything up to, the grand scale of giant apartments or office campus sort of projects, we tend to be the initial point of contact. So we kind of work to connect people to all the different facets of development in a city on the individual project basis. And then behind the scenes, we also work on trying to plan for the future. That's why we're called planners, obviously. So we will do things like comprehensive planning efforts, which are required by the state of Oregon for long-term planning. We'll do things like housing assessments or transportation assessments or other sorts of, local small area planning efforts that we can use to help drive decision-making in the future to get really the best outcome that works for, the people of the community, the people of the city, the people of the neighborhood, and the long-term needs of whatever is involved. So there's a lot of things happening when you're talking about planning.
That is a lot. So, everything from the river walk at one point in time was probably part of the planning department to what is now kind of in your, I'm guessing is on your plate is the Heritage Square development and what might happen there. And so lots of stuff on your plate.
Yeah, there definitely is a lot happening, and there's a lot to learn coming from outside of the area too. So it's been a great learning experience, and I'm really happy to be doing it here now.
So I'm guessing that, as part of your job, you've got lots of information that you pull from what you've learned over the years, but there's also public involvement.
Yep, we do. We try to involve the public as often and as much as we can. So the individual project is really where people tend to be the most familiar. They might see those planning commission notices that get posted on people's properties or get the letter in the mail or see it online or in the newspaper. that's one element, and that is a critical element. But we also want people to participate even before that when we're doing these planning efforts. The city council will have public hearings or public meetings where they'll talk about topics on the larger scale. So that Heritage Square project you mentioned is coming up next week. They're doing that. It's a great opportunity for people to chime in before the project actually comes up for approval. We will see, hopefully in the near future, some other planning efforts like things around the port, things around transportation, things around housing that we really need to get people's input on, because I know a lot, but I don't know everything. And most of my knowledge is how to get from one place to another or to connect information or people. And so I tend to be a facilitator. As a planner, we do tend to be facilitators as opposed to, encyclopedias.
Which is a great way to be, I think. I mean, I think that is an ideal for a city official and a planner that wants input is, you got to have a good basis, but you have to be open to accepting information from other people with their life experiences. So I want to give you a chance to plug that Heritage Square. Is it listening session, information session? What are we calling this?
Oh, I'm not entirely sure what the session's being called now. But it is very preliminary, very early on in the process. So eventually we'll be getting to the point where we have project proposals, but I think this is more of a time to discuss what the community feels like should happen on that site at the large scale. We've heard talk internally about, some people want it to stay parking, some people want it to be developed into something, some people want it to be a park. So this is the time to come and really make those claims in that public forum and build support within the community and within the council to see your dream happen on that site.
All right. And that's Monday evening, right? This coming Monday. All right. We'll make sure to put the link to the Zoom meeting in the comments so that if you want to attend and you're watching this, then you can easily access it. But if you are listening and you don't remember to come back or check the comments, the information is posted on the City of Astoria website. So go right there and you'll find it pretty easily. So speaking of meetings, I roped you into coming into this meeting from being on a Astoria Downtown Historic District Association meeting. Yep. And at that meeting, you specifically stated that you were an active transportation enthusiast, which of course is why, my ears went, oh, bing. I'm going to invite him. A, you were new to town and I wanted other people to have a chance to get to know you. And B, you said you were a transportation options or active transportation enthusiast. What does that mean to you?
So when I talk about active transportation, both personally and professionally, it really is walking, biking, scooting, skating, all the different things you can do to get from point A to point B without using a car. You can see nowadays there's a huge dependence on car trips, and in a place like Astoria that's not particularly large geographically, not every trip really needs to be made by car. So I personally love to bike. I have more bikes than my wife would like me to have. So I have several different types. I'll ride all sorts of areas, all sorts of types of terrain, and so I really like to bike into work or sometimes when I'm closer, walk in and do the same thing to kind of explore town, because it's a great way to connect to your community.
Yeah, you see things on an entirely different level if you're in a bike or on foot or rolling than if you're in a car. I mean, you take away those barriers and it just seems like a great way to get around. I was so excited to hear you were an active transportation enthusiast, and biking is a great way to get around Astoria. How did you get interested in, active transportation and biking?
So most modern day planners will tell you that they're interested in active transportation because it is kind of one of the big topics that they learn about in school. I did not come into planning through the most traditional of backgrounds. I actually came from landscape architecture as opposed from planning. So it wasn't quite as clear for me. But what happened for me is I lived in a small town. I was in Coquille, and it was a mile for me to get from home to work. And it was all downhill in the morning going into work. I said, why am I driving a car and paying for gas and insurance and maintenance and all the other things, and missing out on, the great community that I lived in and the great weather most of the time that I had, when I could be biking or walking. So I started walking, and walking was great. It just took a little while. Like I tend to walk kind of the average 20-minute mile. And so I said, I want to get a bike instead, because I can just roll on into work. It won't take any longer than it does to drive, because it's all downhill for me. And then coming home, I get a nice little workout as I climb back up those hills and I don't have to worry about showering or anything, because I'm, going home at that point. And I loved it. And then I moved away and I kept biking. I picked it up more recreationally after that and started really trying to do more things, just like organized rides. And then it evolved into all the other different kinds of bikes that I have now. And then started working as really an active transportation adjacent planner back in Utah, and just wanted to keep going and started biking into work there, and then did that for a while, moved here, and here it works really well. It's flat. If you take the roundabout way to get into the office here, you don't have to climb any hills coming in or going out. So it works out really nicely. And I can see that continuing as long as the rain holds off. And then when the rain comes, we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, so, you brought up a couple things that I feel like are good topics of conversation. So, you started biking because you lived so close to work. And it just seems like an ideal way to get to work for a lot of people. So what do you think is kind of the threshold? Like if you lived 3 miles away from work, would you bike or ride to work? Where's that line, and what kind of conditions need to be in place? You said it was uphill going home, but downhill going to work. So if it was the other way around, would you have done it?
I think, that's a really personal decision for everybody to make. For me, right now, it's 3 miles flat for me to bike to work because of the route that I take. I don't really want to climb over the top of the hill in Astoria to get into the office, because we don't have a shower here or anything. There's not those amenities in place that really make it convenient to like come in and clean up before sitting in an office all day. But I'm willing to go more than 3 miles. I haven't really quite hit the limit if the amenities are there. So really, if you build the support both in individual companies and then in the infrastructure that you have in the community, I think anybody could really bike to work for any distance. I do have a coworker here who would bike in from Seaside up until somewhat recently, when he had other issues that came up that prevented him from doing so. So, that's a decent jaunt. And then not only would he bike to and from work from Seaside, but he would also go on bike rides at lunchtime during the day and do other things. So it's definitely a possibility. He might be a little bit of an outlier, but that's okay. It really is. When you're looking at trips that are under 3 miles or 2 miles, having a car it's really easy to get around having a car if you have good infrastructure in place. So we have, if you want to brave the hills, our streets are not super highly trafficked. So you can ride around all the neighborhood streets and feel pretty safe or pretty confident that you're not going to run into cars. There are obviously some exceptions to that on the inside of town. It'd be, in my mind, real nice if we had some better infrastructure on the ODOT roads, trying to make it a little easier for people to bike around the south side or the north side, so that they don't have to deal maybe with the traffic being right next to their handlebars.
And by traffic, we're not talking about cars. We're talking about big old log trucks and semis often on those roads. Yeah. So yep. I think I'm with you there. That would be helpful if there was a little bit more safety infrastructure. Yep, for sure. Yep.
And I think, that really tends to be, in my experience, the reason why people don't want to bike. I think most people will bike or even walk if they feel safe and comfortable doing so. And we have spent so much time and energy as a society building car infrastructure that we've deprioritized the biking and walking and other forms of transportation. And so if we spent the time necessary and the resources necessary to build infrastructure that was good for all ages and all abilities, which means more than just striping a bike lane on a road, it really means like paying attention to who is using what, when, and where, then I think you'd see a lot more people being willing to get out into it. Bikes aren't really that expensive in the long run, which is nice. You don't have to buy that $10,000 race bike that you might see the dentist using on the weekends.
Careful, your wife might be watching.
Well, she already knows where I want to spend my money on bikes. So we'll deal with that when we get home. But the you can get fairly inexpensive vehicles, bicycles. You can even start walking or pick up a skateboard or a scooter from your local store and have a good time doing that if the infrastructure is in place.
Sure. So Jason and I have talked about e-bikes frequently too. And I just think that, especially for people that are, let's just say that those hills or the distances are a little bit more challenging. They're out of practice, or, they've got an old injury or something, or, whatever the reason is, that riding a bicycle that you have to 100% power yourself becomes too overwhelming. I think that e-bikes are a great answer for people like that to be able to actually get out there and reap some of the benefits that we have, was one of the questions I was going to ask you about. So you were talking about biking in before work, and then your coworker also that bikes from Seaside. You didn't specifically say it, but I'm going to make you say it. So what are some of the benefits do you feel like that you're getting, or your employer is getting from you because you're biking to work?
I think, the biggest benefit that I see biking to work is that I get an opportunity in the morning and in the afternoon to de-stress a little bit. The biking in, assuming you can handle the traffic, is a great way to work out physically, which helps with your mental health as well as your physical health, because you can really enjoy all sorts of whole body benefits doing so. So I get to have that nice morning in the moment, or the nice moment in the morning rather, where I get a workout, I get to wake up. I'm not coming into work and feeling super sluggish or tired or anything, because I've had an opportunity to work my body a little bit before and after. When I go home, I get to de-stress again. I get to focus on just enjoying the ride, enjoying the moment, so I don't have to be sitting fuming in traffic or anything as I head home. And then when I get home, my wife has a much better evening because I'm less cranky and stressed. And then I get to eat.
Everybody wins.
Yeah. And I get to eat a little bit more because I got to work out a little bit, which is great, because I'm definitely putting on the pandemic pounds that I'm sure. On the broader scale, my wife is actually she really has a strong affinity for public health. She works in healthcare systems right now, and she likes to really focus on what can people do to improve public health at an individual level, and therefore at a societal level. And I've always seen that's active transportation options as a way to do that. If everybody exercised a little bit more, and biking is exercise, even if it doesn't feel like it. Even if you're on an e-bike, you're getting out and you're moving and you're feeling better about yourself. If everybody did that, we'd have a healthier community. We'd have, employers would really end up worrying less or paying less on healthcare premiums, which is a direct monetary benefit that you'll see some people take advantage of. And it works out really to make all sorts of things better. There's a lot of jokes on the internet about how society would be more of a utopian place if everybody biked everywhere. And I don't necessarily say that that's going to be the answer, but I think if everybody biked more places, then they'd be a lot happier.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it would be very helpful to society if more of us biked more often. So on that note, how do you feel your role with the city can help getting the word out about those benefits and start making those changes where we're, building for more than just the car?
So one of the nice things about planning is we get to look at alternative scenarios for the future, and we get to evaluate whether we think that we're making or taking the right steps to reach a certain goal in the future. So in the past, it's been done in silos. So you might have an engineer focusing on cars. You might have, ecologist focusing on wetlands. You might have, different people focusing on their different pieces. And planning really lets us bring them all together. So we, in the city of Astoria, have transportation plans and have done planning efforts for transportation. And the community development office where I work here is really the office that gets charged with seeing that they happen, us working in conjunction with public works and with private and public developers are really the ones that push for those sorts of system improvements that we need to see infrastructure improve over time. So on that professional level, I get to say, yeah, if you build that building, you also need to put in bike parking, and you need to put in maybe bike lanes or better sidewalks or better different pieces to fill out this plan that we've already adopted and we've already gone through the planning effort on. And then as we look forward into the future, we get to say, we really want to set goals to maybe reduce greenhouse gas emissions or reduce vehicle miles traveled or increase the number of alternative transportation trips that are taken every day, month, year, et cetera. And so we'll set goals and say we're going to adopt policies and rules in some instances to help reach those goals. The council is ultimately the deciding body when it comes to policy decisions in the city. And so we tend to also present options to them and say, here's what we think as professionals in the planning realm or engineering, public works, et cetera. Here's the sorts of policy directions that we think the city should take as a whole. And here's how we think you should reach them. And then we'll also be charged with implementing other mandates that come down. Like the state will occasionally adopt rules that we have to follow and say, like the state might say, starting in 5 years, you have to revise this plan to include these elements, or you have to approve these types of developments because they do these things that we feel are important at the state level. And so we have a lot of fingers in the pie, really, when it comes to seeing these things happen. On a personal level, I like to see myself as an ambassador for this type of option, really. I haven't noticed that many people biking around Astoria as I've been doing it, which I think is disappointing because we're really a city where biking or walking works well because we've got the Riverwalk, we've got a really convenient grid system. If you ignore the topography a little bit, we've got close distances or short distances to various destinations. So it's really easy to hop on a bike and ride a mile and hit most of your daily activities. You could go grocery shopping if you have that little basket or backpack on. You can hit the doctor's office. You can hit the gym. You can go to work. You can go to school. So I want to be out there showing people, you can do it. And I put on fenders when I moved here, so I can do it in the rain. So.
Excellent. That was one of my points I was going to get to, is that we can't let that weather stop us because, we just have to get that fresh air and exercise even when it's raining, because it does that just a little bit around here. So you mentioned that you don't see many other people out there biking. Do you feel like that's because people just don't realize it, or they're not, do you think that employers could incentivize that and it would happen more often? You also mentioned the showers thing. I mean, that's infrastructure. Is that the key, or are there other things that could help motivate people? Nobody's going to hold you to this. You're not signing in blood. It's just your opinion. How do we get this to work better for more people?
Mm-hmm. I think it really needs to be an interaction between a lot of different factors. So we at the city need to do a better job of building the infrastructure for people to use. I mean, it's really not pleasant riding in on Marine Drive. And that's, one of the major routes that people would take if they want to come into town or leave town. So like we, working with the state, need to do a better job of seeing that the infrastructure is provided so that people can feel safe and comfortable using it. And then we as the city also need to do that on the streets that we control entirely as well. And that there are planning efforts out there that call for that. So we've got the transportation system plan that's identified improvements that we can make on streets. And then now it's a matter of pushing for those to happen. I also think that there is some responsibility for employers to provide those incentives for their employees to come in. Showers are one that I've seen. They can be a little gross sometimes because they tend to be forgotten and pushed off in the corner or something. So there really needs to be an effort made to provide nice, clean places for their employees to, clean up if necessary, maybe lockers to store their equipment, secure bike storage so that they don't have to worry about it maybe walking off if it gets locked up outside. And then, maybe there's other incentives that they can provide as well. Like I've seen some employers say that, if we pay for your parking, we'll actually just pay you if you don't have to park a car here because we're saving money by not having to build or maintain or rent a parking space. And then, trying to build, you can build team spirit by encouraging, group outings on different things. So you can really have a better work environment as a whole if you can convince people that this is something worth doing. And then maybe there's other levers that can be pulled at the larger level, like your health insurance premiums might decrease if you make it a regular habit, or something like that perhaps can be done at the scale larger than we could manage on an individual or small community basis.
Those are all great ideas and perfect lead-ins to me mentioning that this challenge is a great way for employers to jump on the bandwagon and encourage your employees to use different transportation options. And you get to see as an employer whether people are doing it and what the benefits could be. I mean, we don't really charge for parking in many places around the whole county. The city has some parking spots that employers can rent, and those cost money. And that's a significant cost for, the employer if they're needing to provide that to their employees. You mentioned, that whole incentive thing. I mean, maybe the employer gets to stop paying for one of those parking spots, but they pay their employee instead for not driving. Those kinds of things, kind of switching those things around. Instead of paying for parking, pay your employees not to drive. And so I think that that's a great idea, and I'd love to see people using this. And I can help you as an employer share some of the data for you and the people that are using it. If you have employees, like if the city of Astoria wanted to create a group and the city of Astoria wanted to see which employees are participating, it's pretty easy to do. We just have people use their city of Astoria email address to sign up, and then you get to see all of that group data. And so it's really great way to motivate people to use those transportation options that are already available and to see what's missing. Mm-hmm. Because if you have a bunch of people that are wanting to bike, but they can't bike from where they live, well, then you're able to get that feedback. And then the city planner might be able to help do something about that. So yeah. I just think that all roads lead to, making better transportation options choices. And I think we've got such a great opportunity right now to do those things. COVID has shut us all down, and we have a great opportunity to develop some new habits and get back out there and build things to fit what we want rather than the way they have been. So I have a couple fun questions for you to close us up. So, what place would you plan your next car-free trip to if any and all options were available? Would your trip be stay here local in Oregon? Where in the world might it be? Would it be a outer space trip? What would you do? Well, no cars.
No cars. I think my next car-free trip will be to go home because I didn't bring a car to work. But if we had the best infrastructure that we could put everywhere, the things that I would love to do on a bike are to connect every national park. It would be such a cool road trip on a bike to hit every national park. I really want to do all of the long distance bike touring routes that start and end or pass through Astoria. And there's the Oregon Coast one that's part of the longer Pacific Coast Highway. There's the Lewis and Clark Trail that comes here. There's a Trans-American Trail that's not too far away. And so it'd be so cool to feel safe and comfortable doing those routes. My wife says I'm not allowed to do the Oregon Coast one because Cape Perpetua is terrifying on a bike. And I'm maybe 45% in agreement with her. So those kinds of trips I think would be ideal. It would also be really cool if we could just make all of the day trips on bikes. It'd be amazing if I could not have to worry about having a car to do anything. If I have to go to
Right.
Portland for a day, it'd be cool if I could take a bike to maybe a train or a bus station and hop on really convenient service that connects me to a good place there that I can then hop off and make the leap wherever I need to go.
Well, that one's actually possible. That one's not so far-fetched. You can take your bike on the bus and then ride it to Portland. Well, ride the bus to Portland
Yeah.
with your bike on it. And then you get off there and use your bike all around Portland and do the same thing coming back. So that one's possible. And we love that that's a possibility. And I'm glad you brought it up because a lot of people don't realize that. So it's a really great thing, a great service that our transportation system in Clatsop County offers. So you can take your bike on any of the buses.
Good to hear. I have not had the opportunity to ride the bus yet, but I'll have to check it out now.
There you go. And we actually, some of the new buses now also have a fat tire bike rack too, in case you have one of those. So
I do have one of those.
all right. All right. My last fun question. If you had a magic wand, what transportation related change would you make in Astoria?
If I had a magic wand, it would be something either to create instantaneously that culture of bike friendliness. Because I think, if we can get that groundswell of support for infrastructure improvements and employer and employee expectations and housing expectations and such, that we would see a dramatically different city overnight, or it just be to wave it and make all the roads do the things that I want them to do all the time. So, just be,
flatten out and
yeah.
go downhill every direction you're going.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's not a bad one.
No, it's almost like getting an e-bike. So I used to be a bike snob and think that e-bikes had no place, but I've come around and now I have been considering getting one for my wife and then maybe for myself after that. So, an e-bike is almost like that magic wand.
Yeah, and you bring that up, and I have heard, I do not have an e-bike, I just have a regular pedal bike, but I've heard a lot of people in discussions have basically parked their car or gotten rid of their car in many places because they got an e-bike and found that those trips that they couldn't seem to manage to do on a regular pedal bike, they can do on an e-bike, which means that they don't need their car. And so if they need a car for some sort of trip, they just rent a car or they join a car share, or because there's so few trips that a car is actually required, and an e-bike takes care of so much of that, the trips that they thought they needed a car for. And so I just think in my mind, what a huge cost savings, the insurance and maintenance of an e-bike versus the insurance and maintenance of a car. I mean, it's a no-brainer almost to just sayonara car and, try and embrace the whole new world of e-biking. And so, yeah, so many possibilities.
Yeah. And, I would add, most people in my experience tend to say, like, I can't do my grocery shopping on a bike, or, I can't carry my lunch to work on a bike, or I can't do this, that, and the other on the bike because maybe there's not storage space or charging at the destination if you've got an e-bike or something like that. And biking has become such a big thing over the last 10 years that there are bikes for every possible scenario. You can find cargo bikes where you can transport like appliances. I've seen people with fridges on bikes, which is just insane to me. You can get like e-bikes that have great storage opportunities, so you can do your full grocery shopping trip on a bike, and they feel a bit funky when you're riding them, but they're absolutely doable. So there's not really a situation that I've seen, except for I have to get somewhere as quickly as possible, that a bike doesn't solve.
Right. Yes, it's true. Well, I mean, and sometimes I would say, you haven't been here in a full-blown summer without any restrictions. And I would say that there are summers that if you're riding a bike of any variety in the bike lanes on the highway, you're going to get there faster than you are by car, because there's just so many cars on the road. And just imagine if even half of those cars were off the road and were in the bike, people riding bikes instead, what a difference it would make. I mean, it would just be huge. So, anyway, Alex, I'm so grateful for your spending time with us. We've used up our half an hour plus. We got bonus time with you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I just want to make sure to remind everybody that if you're in Astoria or you work in Astoria and you want to participate in the discussion around Heritage Square, tune in on Monday. Check out the Astoria City website for the link. I'll try and put it, or not try. Yoda says do not try. I will put it in the comments and make sure that you are able to access that meeting as easily as possible. Alex, I sure hope you come back and join us again sometime. And if
Sure.
there's anything, transportation option related that you'd like to share with the world out there, think of us and come join us again sometime.
Okay.
Any closing words from you?
I would just say, if you see me out while biking, feel free to say hi and feel free to join me.
All right, perfect. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, you guys. Everybody have a great weekend. Looking forward to a sunny weekend as we're heading into this fall weather coming up. And yeah, everybody enjoy.